A federal judgeship is a lifetime appointment, and President Reagan has been nominating young men for these jobs, 32 to 38 years old, people who could keep the Reagan influence around for a long time. However, one of Mr. Reagan's nominees is in trouble in Washington, in trouble for saying that the NAACP is a pinko organization and that a white civil rights attorney from his home state of Alabama is a disgrace to his race. NBC News national political correspondent Ken Bodie is in our Washington studio this morning with more on that nomination. Morning, Ken.
Morning, Jane. The man who said those things and who would be a federal judge is Jeff Sessions. Part of the story of the struggle over Sessions' nomination takes place right here in Washington, in the Senate. And part takes place in the Black Belt of Alabama, where Sessions was born and where the struggle for black voting rights was waged. Let's take a look at both places.
Mr. Sessions is a throwback to a shameful era, which I know both black and white Americans thought was in our past. It's inconceivable to me that a person of this attitude is qualified to be a U.S. attorney, let alone a United States federal judge.
Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III. He was brought face to face with things he personally had said. For example, that the NAACP and the Civil Liberties Union are un-American organizations.
These comments that you could say about a commie organization or something, I may have said something like that in a general way that probably was wrong.
Also brought face to face with a Justice Department civil rights attorney who knows him well and who was asked, is Sessions a racist?
I don't really know whether he is or he isn't. I probably ought to know, but I don't. I really can't say.
But the would-be judge's biggest problem came in a case he prosecuted and lost, a vote fraud case involving black civil rights leaders in Perry County, Alabama. Defendants in the Perry County case were Albert and Evelyn Turner, political and civil rights leaders for more than 20 years. Albert was an aide to Martin Luther King. Their scrapbook has all the marches.
This is Bloody Sunday. Albert conceived, that's him right there.
Albert Turner guided the mules at Dr. King's funeral. The federal government charged the Turners with doctoring absentee ballots, vote fraud, and mail fraud.
My own opinion is that the case was political. I actually don't think Jeff Sessions came in with an ounce of evidence.
Blacks charge harassment by U.S. Attorney Jeff Sessions, noting there was no investigation of white vote fraud. The Justice Department says it had no complaints about white vote fraud. Jack Drake, a Tuscaloosa civil rights attorney, says the feds might have found plenty of white vote fraud had they looked for it.
I've seen letters written by the concerned citizens of Sumter County, for example, saying, we know you don't live here anymore, but we want you to vote here.
The case was tried last summer. Albert and Evelyn Turner were found not guilty. Jeff Sessions declined to talk to NBC News, but his friends and supporters told us he is not a racist, and the Justice Department says Sessions had a good case. Jack Drake disagrees.
I didn't think the government had a case. The impetus of it, I think, was to keep blacks from voting, to intimidate people, and they went right after the leadership that they want to defeat.
Albert Turner does not want Jeff Sessions on the federal bench.
A man like Jeff Sessions will be there for such a long period of time, and I honestly think that he will be in the way of progress in this area for quite a while.
He is, I believe, a disgrace to the Justice Department, and he should withdraw his nomination and resign his position.
The discussion of Jeff Sessions' nomination is not over, but my sense, from what I heard in the Senate last week, is that if President Reagan really wants Jeff Sessions on the federal bench, he is in for a fight. Jane?
It does sound rough. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you. It was rough. He didn't make it. This was 1986. By 1986, Ronald Reagan had been president for 5 years, put through a lot of judges. He had never had a district court nominee rejected until even in 1986, they decided that a guy like Jeff Sessions could not be choked down. This guy on a race? No. That was 1986. The voters of the state of Alabama decided, though, they didn't care enough about that, though, to keep him out of statewide and ultimately federal office. By 1994, the voters of the state of Alabama had elected him state attorney general. By 1996, they sent him to the United States Senate, and they have been sending him back there ever since. In his time in the Senate, Senator Sessions has sat on the very same Judiciary Committee that rejected him as basically too racist for a judgeship in that earlier phase of his career.
I'm still concerned about some of the issues that have been raised with regard to
the wise Latina quote, where you said that they should make decisions that are better than a white male. Throughout her career, Ms. Kagan has associated herself with well-known activist judges. She clerked for Judge Mikva and Justice Marshall, each well-known activist.
When he spits out Justice Marshall there, he's talking about Justice Thurgood Marshall. Right, the idea is anybody who worked for Thurgood Marshall, that should be a black mark against them because he was such an activist. Justice Thurgood Marshall, who argued Brown versus Board of Education. The outrage. Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III is really the last of what looked like it was gonna be a dying breed of old school, absolutely unreconstructed white Southern senators. His race politics over the course of his entire career is part of why he has remained a relatively anonymous, low-level backbench senator for his entire time on Capitol Hill. There's a reason he's not in charge of anything. But today, President-elect Trump announced that his pick for the next Attorney General of the United States is Senator Jeff Sessions. Joining us now is Ari Berman. He's a senior writer for The Nation who chronicled Jeff Sessions and his personal history today. Ari's also the author of Give Us the Ballot, The Modern Struggle for Voting Rights in America, which conveniently comes in a lightweight version now, which will almost fit in your back pocket. Ari, thank you for being here.
Good to see you, Rachel. Thank you.
Part of why Jeff Sessions was rejected for that federal judgeship when he was in his 30s is because of those corroborated reports of him making racist statements. But the other part of it was this prosecution that he brought in Selma. Can you explain that part of the story? We just saw that tape contemporaneously, but looking back on it now, what should we know about that story?
So he prosecuted 3 people that were very influential African-American civil rights activists in Alabama, people who had marched on Bloody Selma in 1965, who had been beaten, who after the passage of the Voting Rights Act helped to build political power in the Black Belt of Alabama, where there had been virtually no black elected officials prior to 1965. And the fact that Jeff Sessions prosecuted them on trumped-up fraud cases for helping African Americans vote, for helping elderly voters cast absentee ballots, the fact that he prosecuted them, the fact that the prosecutions took place in Selma, of all places, and the fact that they were prosecuted under the Voting Rights Act, which was supposed to help African Americans, not harm them, was all outrageous at the time.
And at the time, that was a case that went to a jury. It was the jury that made the decision. He brought his charges, and the jury, as far as I remember, it was almost half and half. Right? It was like 7 African Americans and 5 white people on the jury. They came back in something like 3 hours, 4 hours, and said immediately, no, not guilty on all counts. They absolutely rejected the prosecution here.
Absolutely. It was not a strong case by Jeff Sessions, and that's what civil rights activists were telling him at the time. Don't do this. Don't bring these charges. Number one, it's politically and racially motivated, and number two, you don't have a strong case. So for Sessions to lose this high-profile case against black civil rights activists, and then 4 months later to be appointed by Ronald Reagan to be a federal judge was really outrageous and shocking.
Did he ever change his mind on voting rights, on any of the stuff that was problematic for him when he was trying to get named to a judgeship? How did he react when the Supreme Court basically gutted the Voting Rights Act a couple years ago?
He has never changed his mind when it came to voting rights. He supported the Supreme Court's decision gutting the Voting Rights Act. He said there's no racial discrimination voting going on anymore in Alabama, in Georgia, in North Carolina. Clearly, he's not watching your show. Yeah. He's not reading my reporting. In his own state of Alabama, in the last year, they closed 31 DMVs after requiring strict ID to vote, many in majority black counties. In North Carolina, the courts found that that voter suppression law targeted black voters with almost surgical precision. There's been so much evidence of racial discrimination in voting that Senator Sessions refuses to acknowledge.
If he's confirmed, he'll have incredible leeway in terms of deciding how much of those cases get prosecuted and pursued. Ari Berman, this is going to be an ongoing beat for quite some time. I hope you come back.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rachel. Good to see you.
Jeff Sessions is a controversial nominee. He is not the only controversial person President-elect Trump picked for a very important job today. We got much more ahead. This is an important time in the news. Please stay with us.